Hello again. This is Amanda and I am going to teach you today how to make really simple chicken taco meat. This is versatile. You can make burritos with it. You can just put it in a bowl with chips and lettuce and tomato and make a chicken taco salad. I'm going to make kind of a version of chicken enchiladas right now, but because I'm staying away from cheese and preservatives, there's not a lot of choices out there. So I will show you what I'm doing with this, but basically we're first going to make the chicken taco meat. What you're going to need is half of an onion or a full small onion. I usually just use a yellow onion. It doesn't really matter here, just the cheap yellow onion. You're going to need 2 cloves of garlic. What you're going to do with those, I'm going to use my little handy dandy chopper that I have had forever, and first I am going to just chop these roughly into a couple of different things so that it can spread up better, and I can get it in the food chopper. Just kind of roughly chop them and put them in this Black & Decker chopper. And then once we get it all chopped up, we are going to saute them. You have to have a pretty decent sized pan. I will move my camera here in a second so you can see what I am doing, what kind of pan I've got. But you kind of stuff that all in there. If you get too big of one, it won't fit in there. And that is why I just have half of one here, so that I can make sure it completely fits. And I like to smush this up really, really small because I don't want to see or taste just a bite of onion. I like it just to be the flavor. So you twist that on, and hang on just 1 second. It's going to get loud, and let me smush these up. And take the stuff off that gets stuck on the lid, and then smush down some of the edges here so that they are not in big pieces. Try this really smushed up onion and garlic. This is what we are going to cook. This is a big piece. Sometimes you'll get the skin of the onion if you don't get enough of it off, but sometimes you'll pull some of those out that way, because I don't want to eat that part. So you got your little cutter part, put it in the sink. Get this out. I've already turned on the pan, so the pan is already hot, so it'll cook faster. And we can get that going. Sometimes people will use some oil in this first. I never have. I haven't seen a need when you smush up the onions so much and cut up the onions so much. It's usually kind of juicy, so it doesn't really matter. Let me move the camera down a little bit. Here's my big pan that I use. So I am twisting it around. Move it closer. That didn't work. Well, we're still cooking that right there. So let this cook for a few minutes, and that way you don't have too much flavor. While that is cooking, I have my spices. These spices that I have are the dried cilantro. You can actually put real cilantro in there if you have it. I don't usually, so that's what I put in there. Chili powder, oregano leaves, cumin, and my trusty salt. So right now it is cooking. I'm going to cook it a little bit longer. After that, we are going to add in the spices, and we are going to add in tomato sauce. There's different brands of tomato sauce. Just kind of watch what ingredients are in there. Usually there's some sort of citric acid. That seems to be okay. It's not really a preservative. That's just something that's in every tomatoes. So we are going to take an 8-ounce can of tomato sauce and just put half of it in. We're just going to eyeball it. It doesn't really matter exactly. I only put the full amount in if I want it extra juicy. It just kind of depends on how much liquid you want in this pan. But we're going to stir it a few more times. Okay. There, you can almost see. So now that we've got this onion cooking right here, onion and garlic, smells good. Sometimes it will make your eyes water. Sometimes it will help if it's really, really strong. It makes your eyes water. Turn your fan on, your ceiling fan on. Your eyes won't water quite as bad. I notice once you get used to cooking, it doesn't bother you as much as whenever you just start cooking. So just keep it doing it and you will get used to it. So now I'm going to add in all of my spices. I will put it in the comments of the actual ingredients so you know exactly how much. I'm going to add in my spices. Now I'm going to add in about half a cup of this tomato sauce. And stir that all together. And that is your flavoring for the chicken meat that we are going to add in soon. I'm going to get this all stirred up. Just got it on kind of a low heat right now. I had it on medium heat because this pan is kind of thick. It takes a while to get heat. So once it is warmed up, it's in pretty good shape. So I'm going to let that simmer for a second. More flavor there. Let that simmer for a second while I get the chicken ready. The chicken I like to use, which is very good with no preservatives, the only ingredients is chicken and sea salt, is this Keystone chicken. It is very good stuff because if you look at any other canned chicken, it's got preservatives in it. You let the juices drain. Be very careful because if you keep it together, it's a lot easier to get out of the can. So I'm going to spread out this chicken, and if there's any yucky spots, like kind of gooey stuff that was on the outside, grease or anything, I'll take it and put it in my little trash container because I don't want gooey chicken. There's not usually that much in this Keystone chicken. There's another piece that you can tell is kind of gooey. Take it and put it up. So here is this chicken. See, I mean, look how flaky that is. It's pretty good chicken. Now that I've got it kind of spread out so it's easier once we put it in the pan, I'm going to rinse my hands off. I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit. Now I'm going to add this chicken to the pan. Make sure you have a big cutting board because if you have a little tiny cutting board, it's probably not going to fit very good and you might make a mess. You notice the bigger cutting board makes it a lot easier. Now I'm going to stir that up and let it cook until it gets warm. Basically at that point it is done because the chicken's already done. But 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes, basically let it cook while you're getting the next step ready. If the next step is that you are done and you just want to eat that as taco chicken meat that you're going to put in tacos or in taco salad, then that's it. It's a very simple evening meal that does not take very long to prepare. Sometimes I will use this chicken meat. I will just put it on smushed up tortilla chips with a container of guacamole, one of those little single servings, and stir that all up together and eat it, and it's pretty tasty. It's simple, it's healthy, doesn't have too many ingredients. Usually I try to always keep those ingredients in my cabinet, so if I don't know what to cook and I am hungry, I at least can go and do that. Let me show you what this looks like. There we go. That is our chicken taco meat. I'm going to pause and get everything ready to show you what I'm going to do with the rest of it to actually finish my recipe of what I'm planning on cooking tonight. See you in a second. Okay, so for our supper tonight, I have the chicken that we made up just shortly, not too long ago. I am now decided I'm going to make burritos with a cream sort of sauce so that it will be very good. I won't have to be missing the cheese that I don't want to put in there. I have a saucepan here. I have 2 tablespoons of Country Crock plant-based butter. I have melted it. Let me turn it down so you can see what I'm doing. I have this melted. So now I'm going to add to my 2 tablespoons of butter, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of flour. Make sure you do the King Arthur flour because it does not have any enrichment to it, so there's nothing there that's going to hurt your alpha-gal. So sometimes enriched flour is not good for that condition. So I have the flour and the butter. I'm going to stir that up. This is the beginning of what's called a roux, R-O-I-X. I don't really know if that's the right way to say it, but that's how I say it. So you stir this up and you cook it. You don't just immediately add your liquid. You have to cook this butter flour mixture for a few minutes to make the flour somehow not taste as floury. I'm not 100% sure, that's just what I've learned. So that's what you do. So cook this for a few minutes, stirring it. If you don't stir, you're going to start having burnt in stuff, and that's not good. What we are going to do is we are going to add to this the chicken broth, and that is going to be what we are using instead of milk, because if you were to do this and then add milk, that would make gravy. We are not going to make gravy, we're going to use chicken broth, and that is going to be our cream sauce, and I will also add some other seasonings to it to make it have a little bit more flavor. So I'm going to let that cook for just a second. I have chicken broth that I use. I always use less sodium. I'm not sure why, but it's probably better for you. So we are going to now add only half of this. We're going to do 2 cups. Just because I don't need more than that, because I don't want to overdo on the liquid. You'll see as I put it together what I mean. So I'm going to add that in. I just add a little bit. Sometimes I would use a whisk when I do this, just because it doesn't get as clumpy, but it ends up mixing up pretty good no matter how you do it. And just slowly add that in. Let me switch over to a whisk. Stir this up. There's my first cup. Try to get that all stirred up good before I add the second cup, because it's easier to stir in clumps when there's not as much liquid. You don't want clumps in there at the end. You want all that to dissolve, because if it doesn't dissolve and spread out evenly, you're not going to get the thickness out of your cream sauce at the end, because it's just going to be clumpy and then liquid the rest of the time. So while I'm letting that dissolve, I will pour 1 more cup. Yeah, don't do that. Let's get another one. 1 more cup of chicken broth. In there with that. stir that up. Make sure that is mixed pretty good. In the back over here, you will see I am cooking rice. It's kind of overflowing a little bit. What I did is I did 1.5 cups of water and jasmine rice is right here. First, you put 1.5 cups of water in the pan. Let it get hot to boiling. You put 1 cup of jasmine rice in there. Just put the lid on and set the temperature down on low. And then now you just let it set for 15 minutes for all the rice to absorb all of that liquid. Once I have the rice made, then I'm going to flavor it with different seasonings just to complete the meal, to make it all together taste more like the Mexican that I am used to, the Hispanics flavors. There is better ways to make that rice with actual real onions and everything. It's a little more work, so I ended up deciding that the other tastes pretty good, just doing it this other way, so I just stick with it. Okay, so I've got that stirred up. Every once in a while, stir your chicken. That way it doesn't overcook. I have it set on very low, so it's just staying warm and simmering while I get the rest of the stuff done. I also turned on the oven to 400 degrees because now I'm going to work on the actual burritos. I'm going to turn this down so I don't burn it. So I've got it down to like 3. I did have it in the middle at 5. And put up my flour. And let me move it up so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. So I have Tortilla Land tortillas. This is what I like to use because there are only 5 simple ingredients: wheat flour, water, canola oil, salt, and sugar. I have washed my cutting board, so I'm going to use it. What you do is take your tortillas. I've already opened up this package. Be really careful if you only take a few out and then you put it back in your fridge. Sometimes they will mold. This was just a few days ago I did this, so I think they're okay. Also, if you will take them out at the beginning before you start cooking so they can be a little bit more room temperature, then they will separate a little bit better. I am separating them out before I get my fingers all sticky and yucky. And then I will show you what I am doing with this. I just got a couple more. I have a pan over here. It's one of these small size of, like, it's not a normal cake size, it's the one that goes inside of it. You can kind of do whatever size you want, depends on how much you are trying to, how big you're feeding people, if you double this other recipe or not, but this seems about perfect for the size, so I use it. I will then make my burritos. I take one of these tortillas and a spoon. Let me turn off the light back here so you can see things better. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I have about a spoonful-ish, a spoonful and a half of meat. Let me move the camera over here so you can see what I am doing. Can you see that? Without my phone falling over. Okay. So I put this meat from here on here. The way you fold, if you want to just make like the burritos that you find like in the freezer section, you fold the 2 sides in. Kind of squish your meat, 2 sides in, make those folded, fold this one over, push it in, and roll. Once you roll it, you will have this part here, and you wet that down, and then you can take that and just put it on a pan and cook it. These will then get cooked all the way, and you have your little burritos. I am going to do it with cream sauce. To do that, I like to make it longer and basically not fold in the sides. And then you push it over, push it back to make it tight, roll, And then I'm going to put it in my pan just as we do, just about like that. So I'm going to fix the rest of these and then I will be right back. Okay, so now my oven is complete. It is at 400 degrees. I have rolled up all of my chicken into my tortillas. I did end up rolling up the edges like I showed you on the burrito, just not quite as short. So therefore it kind of makes more burritos that are easy to take out. What I do next is to actually put them in the oven, cook them for about 10 minutes so that way they can start to get brown and already start to cook, because these tortillas are not cooked. You have to cook them so they don't get as soggy if I cook them without the sauce on. I will cook them first for about 10 minutes and then we will put the sauce on. So let me put them in the oven. Okay, those are in the oven. I had a little bit of chicken left. I'm going to actually just keep that chicken and use it later just as, like I said, for chicken tacos or something to that effect. I'm going to turn that off so that does not cook anymore. So I have the sauce. It is still cooking. I have been stirring it every once in a while. If you have a helper you can convince to help cook with you, you can have them stir this, because it actually would be better to stir as, you know, more often than just every once in a while, so therefore it doesn't get yucky on the bottom. But I'm stirring this. Now let's add some flavor to this. I still have the flavoring, the ones that I used whenever I was making the chicken taco meat. So I used pretty much the same thing just to make it taste more flavorful when you go to eat it. So I'm going to do like a half a teaspoon of cilantro. Get out the half teaspoon. And then I'm going to do a half a teaspoon of chili powder. Let's not stick with the half a teaspoon oregano. And a half a teaspoon of cumin. Now I'm going to stir that all up and see how it tastes. So let's mix all of this in. Need a whisk for this. So I am mixing those flavorings in so it'll be a very flavorful sauce that will add to these burritos, and not just the chicken as the flavoring, being the sauce. That looks amazing. I did not add any salt. Let me taste it and see if I need to add salt. Yes, I think it needs salt. I think if you probably did the regular salted chicken broth, I bet it would be just fine. I'm going to actually add a half a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to stir that up. And let that simmer a little bit longer. Now it's time to look at our rice. Our rice we're going to flavor pretty much the same way, except we're going to add some tomato sauce. The tomato sauce I used earlier in the chicken, I am now going to add. Okay, so let's just do the rest of it into this rice. Now we don't waste anything. Now let's add our spices again. Let's add the cumin. Let's add a half a teaspoon of cumin. Half a teaspoon of chili powder. Half a teaspoon of oregano. Let's just leave the cilantro out of the rice. I don't know that I want to do that. Although I guess we do make cilantro rice quite a bit, so let's put a half a teaspoon of dried cilantro in there. That is that one right there. Okay, I see that my sauce is boiling. Let me stir it so it does not burn. Okay, now let's stir this rice up and see how we are. I bet I need to add salt because I did not add any salt to the original rice when I started cooking it. Okay, that is looking pretty good. Let's taste a little bit of it. Yes, that needs salt. So let's add a half a teaspoon of salt. You can always add extra salt, you cannot take away salt, so be careful when you are adding salt. So you do not overdo, because you can't fix that very easily. If you are not used to my cooking very much, you will be, and you're used to eating out all the time, you will not think there's enough salt in my recipes. So always taste and just add extra salt as you need it. And then as you get used to cooking for yourself and not eating all the preserved food and processed food with all the salt, your taste buds will change some. And the salt, you won't need as much when you're cooking. And if you're cooking for other people, you're not going to do what I'm doing on taste testing. You will also be wearing gloves. You're going to be a lot more worried about making sure everything's okay. Me and my family's all that's going to eat this, so I mean, I'm worried about it, but I'm not incredibly worried about it. We all have the same germs. Okay, so that rice is done. Put the lid back on that. I turn that off. The sauce is still cooking. It's not real thick yet, so we're going to keep it cooking, but I got to get it stirred back in there really good. We're making progress though. You can tell it's a little bit thicker. Let me see how my other things are going. Those still need more time. I forgot to actually set a timer, so we're just going to eyeball it. Basically, that's kind of a lot of how cooking is, especially when you cook longer. You look and see when the tops of those tortillas are starting to get brown. That means it's cooked enough, and I can add this sauce on top, the cream sauce. I'm going to wait till it is time to get my other stuff out and clean up my chicken. If you clean up as you go when you're waiting for everything else to get done, things are a lot faster, so I'll be right back. Okay, so I am back. I have changed where my camera is. I am still figuring this out in my videos, but as I go, I will hopefully get better. You can still see what is going on, I think. I have been continuously stirring my sauce, my cream sauce. I have it down on low. It is getting rather thick. I'll show you. It's getting rather thick right here. Nice and yummy. My burritos are getting brown. I'm going to put on my UGG gloves. Love UGG gloves. They're so much better than just regular oven mitts. I'm taking out my burritos. See, they're starting to get brown. That's what you want to do. Now, I'm going to add my sauce on top. Just pour that all over there. Ooh, you can hear that sizzling. Cover it all. Edges, so that way they don't get if you cook it before you put the sauce on, it'll make it a lot better tasting at the end. Some people may use already cooked tortillas. If you do that, I've never done that because they all have all sorts of other ingredients. If you look at their ingredient list versus the ingredient list in the tortilla land tortillas, they're a lot different. I've always been eating for quite some time clean without all the extra preservatives and junk, so I'm not going to start now. So this is how you do it without all the junk. So now I'm going to put this in the oven until that sauce gets a little thicker, probably only about 5 more minutes. I also, as you see now, we've got our rice. It's all cooked. I have cleaned up the other pan. This is all the chicken I had left was a little tiny deal. If I would have tried harder, I probably could have put the rest of the chicken in the tortilla rolls, but sometimes I like this just for lunch. Like I said, I will take this to work for lunch. I will grab some tortilla chips. I will put this on there, put some guacamole on there, and stir it all up, and it's pretty good. Or you can add in your lettuce and tomato, whatever you want. I will serve it with the guacamole packets. We will probably each use a guacamole packet or maybe just share a guacamole packet, and that will be our supper. When this is done, I will show you a picture of my plate, and that is it. I hope you enjoy this video. Thank you. I'm not in.